Right. Well, it's 5 minutes past. Would you like to start, Igor?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Can I share the screen, or
Please.
let's see if that works?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is everybody seeing the screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now let me see if I can expand that. Okay. Now, there are some consequences to COVID-19, apart from not being able to travel. There is a huge emphasis in rethinking first the IT world, and second the organizational processes in the organizations. Obviously, everything is being virtualized now. And now the question is whether and how artificial technology can and should modify organizational processes. And I was trying to reason upon that. Thank you for being kind enough to let me in to try to discuss the effects. And frankly, I would not like to make it a lecture. I would like to make it a kind of a consultation, getting feedbacks on the perspectives, which may be completely wrong. I don't know. We haven't tested them yet. So the really important part in this for me is to have your opinion, your perspectives, and it goes like trying to fill you in on certain things. And I know based on experiences of all of you that a lot will come back. And well, I'm hoping for a great discussion. By the way, my name is Igor Perko. I come from Maribor. Maybe you've heard about this little place. And I'm putting my free time, some of my free time in WOSC. Yeah. So let's start with the motive. So what's the
So,
point?
would you like to be interrupted, or would you prefer people to do the questions by the end?
I have no problem being interrupted. Please do interrupt me.
Okay.
Because it's much easier to try to explain something and or then go back. The only thing is that, well, if I mess up, if I don't get the line, well, I still have my presentations to know what to say next. So yes, feel free to interrupt at any time.
So please raise your hands when you want to interrupt, okay?
Okay, I don't know if I will see that because my Zoom is kind of strange.
I will help. I will help.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. So basically, if you're talking about artificial technology impact on organizational processes, there are some sub-questions which needs to be answered or discussed. First of, I think, the most important one, and the part where we actually put the large portion of emphasis is it ethical? And if it is or it is not, where and how? So to define this ethical issues is very important, and we are not the only one trying to reason about that. Second is more technical. Is it feasible? Can we do it? And up to which point can we develop artificial intelligence in a manner that it actually can be employed in organizational processes? And of course, direct, indirect implications of that. We need to consider artificial intelligence capacities and constraints, because artificial intelligence is not almighty and it may take a while. When I was going through the organizational bottlenecks, okay, if I click on that, it should do something. Yes. Well, frankly, when they were boiled over, I came to the things which were already mentioned in our community multiple times. One of the bottlenecks is organizations are not linked with its environment in the sense of information flow, right? There is one bottleneck. which should be addressed and maybe can be addressed via artificial intelligence. The second one is really related to the linkage with its environment. Basically, if you look at the subjects in the environment, they are not really willing to share the information at any cost. They only share it under certain conditions. And I think those certain conditions should be elaborated more closer to see when and how people and other organizations are prepared to share data, to share information. And when we talk about information, sometimes this information is really, really personal. And that might be the problem. The third one is quite important, is very important, and we will try to deal with that as well. It's about the gap between the environment needs and the organizational goals. Because if we reason about the organizations, why is it placed in a certain environment? It's basically to enrich the environment in which it is, to provide something for the environment. And quite often the environment needs something absolutely different than the organization delivers. Okay, so that's one. And the last one is more of an internal part of the organization. It's the capacity to react to the environment, and this capacity is limited. And if we try to deliver more than we are capable of, then we are in stress. And this is something we do not want to have in our organization. So those are the four bottlenecks that we have identified. And hopefully we'll try to open discussion on this part. Now let's go to the tool set which we have, which we selected. We will absolutely discuss a little bit about artificial intelligence technology. Then we'll invoke social responsibility concepts, which may be very good in expanding the organizational goals. And to elaborate more on the organization's structure and organizational processes, we'll try to invoke viable system models and business performance management models. So this is the tool set we are working with to basically clarify the picture of what can and should be done. Let's start with artificial technology. It's not artificial technology. It's not just something there is. It can be divided into three development stages. We can start with narrow AI. And narrow AI is something we currently acknowledge as artificial intelligence. Basically, those are predictive algorithms which can learn from data. You have unsupervised learning, supervised learning. It can reason. And basically what it can do, it can provide predictions. We can put in a very simple example of that. It's a weather prediction based on really big data. You can quite accurately predict weather in a local environment for the next few days. And this is something AI can easily do. And that's the current state of development of artificial intelligence. Well, the next stage is the general AI. And the good part with that is it can reason not upon one problem. We can go back to the weather, but really it can reason about the problem and anticipates the recipient's response to the level 1 prediction. What is that? Again, if you are with weather, sometimes weather forecast is not really helpful. It's much more helpful if AI knows your situation, if it knows your preferences, and if it can basically propose you to do something. For instance, if outside it's raining and the artificial intelligence knows that you have to go to work, buy food, it can basically propose you to take the umbrella. Well, if it's a COVID situation and you stay at home in your living room, there is no need for an umbrella. So frankly, it does not really need to propose you to do something. So that's and the value added of this general AI is much higher than the value added of the narrow AI. Proposing a solution to a problem in a situation, understanding not one problem, but two, and the relationship between them, the complexity of that is quite larger than only to predict something. And frankly, this is something companies are working on. This is the next step of the development in artificial intelligence, and it is very heavily connected to understanding both of the problems. Okay, we can understand how much data you need to predict weather, quite a lot. Now you must ask yourself, which kind of data do you need to understand your position in current time? So it really needs to know what are you planning to do in the next, let's say, 30 minutes. It requires detailed personal information on the recipient to basically propose something. And I'm pretty sure that you have all seen the quite clumsy attempts of Google to sell you things which you already bought half an hour ago with Google commercials. Well, they're still learning. So the general AI is not really done yet, but the idea is to develop it. The last stage of artificial intelligence is so-called super artificial intelligence. And this one actually understands the organizational environment. So it does not understand only one or two problems, but it understands the organizational environment quite holistically, much more than people, individuals are capable of. And it can actually design a structure of an organization which can respond to the organizational environment and has the capacity to act. Now, frankly, I'm terrified of the super AI. It's not there yet, and I hope it will not come to us in the near future, because it will radically reshape the organizations as we know them. I don't know where the place for human intervention will be in these super AI designed organizations. I'm not sure. Okay, let's try to see why are we not there yet. Why super intelligence or general intelligence, artificial intelligence is not developed yet. Generally, there are four major issues. One is defining the problem. We are extremely good at asking the wrong questions. And we are trying to use artificial intelligence in the ways which are not really helpful for us. Okay, this kind of this issue is going to be resolved relatively naturally, because when you ask yourself, I'll just call it a stupid question several times, then in the end you'll figure out what you need to ask. So defining the problem is gonna be solved. The next issue is data availability and data quality. Now, to go to the to go to the general AI, you really need large quantities of data, and the data quality which exposes things you need to know for a person to, for instance, for a person to react upon. So really detailed, high quality, personal data. And there we go, there we get to the ethical issues. Because acquiring this kind of data is really problematic, and we'll try to focus in the presentation quite a lot on the ethical issues of acquiring the data. Then we have some technical issues, algorithm in adequacy, and related also to the technical capacity to run the algorithms, and the end the results interpretation. And those two are basically feasibility issues which can be resolved with the means of the technical development. Okay. Now let's just put 2 words on the ethical issues in data sharing. We have 3 options. First option is, well, ignore the ethical issues. And we were great in doing that by now. By now, we were capable of ignoring the ethical issues, which results in 2 cases. One is state or business manipulation of the data providers. An example of a state manipulation, well, just look at China and their great experiment of controlling masses. Yep. And the second one is Western, which goes to companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, who are really trying to manipulate, and I'm saying manipulate, people based off knowing what they are and what they do and what they think and what they prefer. I'm really sorry, but lately in Facebook, I only get results which are supporting my perspectives. It's really hard for me to get opinions from people with whom I would like to disagree. I don't know. It's just strange, right? Okay. Now we have an option B. Let's prohibit personal data use. Let's protect ourselves up to the point where nothing goes. Well, that's currently the European Union proposal. Really prohibiting personal data use. You may not use it anywhere, anyhow. And frankly, this is a very successful way of closing down AI, because without really quality data, AI cannot function. Okay, so that's option B. And option C, well, can we maybe provide some independent research on how to develop ethically correct methods of personal data sharing? And the most important word here is data sharing. It's not data collecting. Because if you have data collecting, that means that somebody is collecting your data, whether you know it or not. It's about data sharing, whether you decide to share your data or not. And the real issue there is the complexity of data sharing, because none of us would like to deal with that. Do I really need to tell everybody which data I'm prepared to share with you? Am I a data expert? Well, obviously not. So the conclusion is, let's try to design an intelligent, protective environment which would protect the the concepts of data sharing and would be, for instance, not on the data consumer side, but on the data provider side. And that's problematic. And this is something we'll try to do in the hybrid reality lab, which we are trying to establish. But maybe more on that next time. The next set of tools which we would like to employ, and now this is going to be much faster, is the social responsibility concepts, which basically expands the organizational goals to support its environment instead of use its environment. And it actually takes care of all of the organizational stakeholders, not shareholders, not only the active ones, the stakeholders which have a voice, but also the passive ones, the stakeholders which usually do not have a voice, do not have a representative to state its demands, its expectations of an organization. One of these passive ones is the natural environment. Who is speaking in behalf of the natural environment? Should organizations by themselves somehow respond to that, or what? So the idea on social responsibility concepts is that the success of an organization is not measured by profit only. It is about its impact on the environment, on the stakeholders that are related directly or indirectly with the organization. So this is one of the tools we're using. And the good part with social responsibility is that it's not only theoretical, it is already invoked in a more rigid schemas like ISO standards. Of course, those ISO standards need redefinition, but they pose the starting ground. You can use them to start with. I'm pretty sure nobody saw this picture before. Okay, so I'll use like half an hour on explaining which subsystems are there. Raul, can I do that? Okay, he's just laughing. Okay, so we all know viable system model. It's a great tool to explore the structure and relationships within the organization, and the structures and relationships of the connectedness with the organization with its environment. So I will not spend another second of my time to explain that, because you know that. The next nice simple tool is business performance management, which kind of explains the flow of processes in organizations, which largely, and that's the simplifications, we know better and more detailed processes diagrams, but this one is nice. It goes from plan to execute to measure to adapt, understanding that this circular thing is not really circular, that those things overlap, and they do produce knowledge generation for the organization. Okay, so that's implicit, and I'm really glad that I don't need to explain that, because I know that you know that. And the outcome of that, there are two outcomes. One of the outcomes is to optimize existing processes. So if you have a circular development of that, you know, the next version of the processes is going to be more optimized. But the more exciting one is that during that circular thing, you can also develop new business goals. So it can not only optimize, it can also, the organization can develop in the sense of not only quality, but also not only in the quantity, but also in the quality of the processes in organization. Okay. Okay, so that was the tool set. we were trying to use. Let's go to the method, which is relatively easy. Okay. Now, how to do that? How to explore the effects of artificial intelligence or organizational processes? Obviously, we need to examine the state of the art, the existing organizational structures, the interactions in the system, internal and external. That's something you need to do. But the next one is more interesting. Redefine the organizational goals. So really go to the organization and see, okay, where is this gap between the environment's expectations and the organizational delivery? I think this is the most important part, because then in here you can see what an organization can do and not repeats the original optimization processes. That's the important part. And when you have that, then you can identify the gaps between the current and desired states. And we have put two things there. The data sharing gap should be examined more detailed, because that's the part where the environment provides information to the organization, right? And this one is a tricky one. And of course, the reasoning capacities gap. This is where we can expect that artificial intelligence can help us reason upon this new large quantities of data, which will come to the organization and basically break our capacity, right? And the next step is redesign business processes for closing those gaps, and develop artificial intelligence technology-based structures to support these processes. And we're done. Now, the issue lies in the detail. It's all about the data sharing gap, how to overcome this one. Because if we use artificial intelligence to close the reasoning capacities gap, we really need to address this data sharing gap. Yeah. Let's try to put this in a relatively simplified example of what can be done. And I was thinking about the educational organizational basic processes. If you have an organization that delivers some kind of education, yeah, there are usually some steps and some processes which allow you to do that. And frankly, I'm pretty sure that we will disagree on many of those, because everybody has kind of its own perspective on how this should be done. But if we start with the VSM level 3, so the top level, and external communication management planning. Okay, here we have basically maybe a typo. I should learn how to type. Requirements examination. So basically you examine the requirements for when you try to design a new education plan. You need to see what environments ask you to do. Then you define the school vision and strategies. You define courses. You plan how you're going to put together the infrastructure and the staff. And then you go down and you go and see, oh, this one is nice, because this one goes back and says, okay, we have prepared some courses definitions. Let's adapt them according to our infrastructure and staff limitations. So this is a wishful thinking of what we could do, And after we plant our stuff and our infrastructure, we adapt that to what we have. Okay. And then we prepare the support infrastructure, define syllabus, and basically start to teach basically support learning processes. That's the task of support services, and the teaching staff is there to teach, and students are there to learn. And then at the end, we have some examination, right? So students and teaching staff actually do the exams and check if the students learned something. Oh, yep. Maybe I should go back. No. Sometimes students actually assess the teaching staff, and then we have to evaluate the syllabus, and in the next year we do it all again. Okay, so that's the standard process of creating a syllabus, and I'm pretty sure that you will disagree, but generally maybe I'm not that far from the reality. Now let's see if we can expand the gap, the goal set here, because right now the goal set is let's teach a generation of students something we already know. Okay. Now, first of all, we are collecting knowledge demands, the environment knowledge demands at the beginning of the curriculum. I don't feel this is adequate. The knowledge demands requirements by the environment should be checked regularly all the time to provide some kind of options to adapt to what is needed. So this one is very rigid at this time, and it can be largely improved. State-of-the-art knowledge is being not really shared among institutions. You need to develop your own knowledge, and then you pass it on to the students. You don't really go to the general knowledge which is out there and share it appropriately. So maybe that would be great to share the common state-of-the-art knowledge. Let's try to not teach generations of students, but each student. So individual student treatment. Let's turn teaching to learning. So it's not about passing my knowledge to my students, but really enable students to learn. It's a huge difference, and I know you're familiar with that. The next one is, should we wait and evaluate the gained knowledge of the students at the end of the course, or should we basically support students in learning, but is instant progress evaluation, so that you take care that the learning of a student is progressing all the time. Okay. Learning contents and methods are relatively rigid. Those things should be adaptable to the needs of the student, and that's something we are not doing. After students leave the faculty, quite often they break their relationship with the teachers. You produce. We are producers. We are producing people and put them to the market. Come on. Why? Is there a chance basically to establish lasting relationship between the teacher and students, which go in both directions, frankly, at this stage, this is impossible. But let's see. The problem with all of this is that it, by large, exceeds the current organizational capacity to interact. So we cannot do that. If we would have done any of those things properly, it would result in so much organizational and personal effort and so much stress that we cannot do that. And this is basically the reason why the goals of an educational organizations are limited, because we can only do as much as we can. Okay? So let's see if and how some of those goals can be somehow assessed with the use of artificial intelligence. Can we get closer to those goals? I don't know.
Igor,
yes, please.
I have a comment there, because I don't agree necessarily that by expanding the goal set in the way that you are saying, that I completely agree is the direction that we should do it, necessarily will result in exceeding the current organizational capacity to interact. Because if you redesign the process of teaching and the tools for teaching using state-of-the-art technology and state-of-the-art understanding of teaching and learning in a much more, let's say, project-based approach, in a much more systemic approach in which you devolve to the student the responsibility for the learning, then the whole design will change in ways that will allow much more capability to be assumed in the classroom. So, I mean, I may be naive, but I think that there will be possibilities of radically transforming the classroom in such a way that you not necessarily exceed the organizational capacity to interact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yes, I agree. But there is one quite limiting thing there, and I'll go back to this several, but not enough. You know, in this process, there are in the actual life there are more correction and measurement issues. So basically, by measuring the success of students, by measuring the success of teachers, by measuring the success of organization tends to just follow to fulfill those measures. So they deviate from the goals, which could be large, but go to the narrow set of measures, because this is something I need to complete to be rated as successful. And I think it's quite problematic in this sense. And people do adapt. If we have a relatively simple measurement system, well, it's much easier for us to try to comply with this measurement system than actually deliver the quality. And we do that naturally. So yeah, thank you for the comment. I think it's a valid one.
Okay.
But you wanted to say more, Angela?
No, just that I do agree with you that measurement is fundamental, but it depends on what are we measuring. In the traditional way of measuring performance in education, yes, you are completely right. I mean, if we are measuring what most of the traditional educational systems demands you to measure, yes, then incorporating all this new set of goals will be traumatic, and you will be overloading the variety of the system and then overloading the capability, and then it will be chaotic. Yeah, but if you move into a more systemic way of education, it's very likely that you need to completely rethink the measuring system. Yeah, and I know that one of the biggest challenges to move into a more systemic way of education is precisely that nobody have come up with a way of measuring the results that is still structured enough to be generalized and to make it compatible with the expectations of the educational authorities. So, I mean, there is a huge research area there. I'm not saying that there are already clear solutions to the challenge, but I am more optimistic in the sense that that reinventing, reinventing also the way of measuring results in education will lessen the possibility of overloading the current organizational capacity. It will have to be really a systemic transformation, a full transformation of both the content, the way of delivering, and the way of measuring. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And frankly, but I think that a clear goal set expansion is necessary to clearly state what do we want an organization to do. What are the goal sets? Because right now those are relatively limited. And yeah, now the action exercise here is, let's see if AI can help and what's the trade-off. What does it cost an organization to do that? And yeah, let's see if we can find means to follow up these goals. And absolutely, this is why this is so important for me to state this in a group of system thinkers, because then we can develop a maybe viable solution for that.
Igor,
Yes.
one question.
Mm-hmm.
How are you connecting all this expansion of the goals to artificial intelligence? Because in general, we are in the direction we want to expand the goals and make them more ambitious and all of that. But at the same time, your problem now is artificial intelligence, and how does it help in dealing with all these problems of organizations? And what I would be interested to hear is how are you making the connection between this goal expansion and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, let's examine that. Let's try to examine that. And frankly, I hope for a discussion on that, because those things which I will state are basically proposals. None of these were actually executed. None of these were proven in the real life, because frankly, the artificial intelligence is not there yet. So what we have here is a mind experiment, and let's see. Now, previously, I mentioned 3 levels of artificial intelligence. Let's try to put those 3 levels to the goal expansions. Let's see about first the narrow AI effects. What we could do, we could predict the student learning success, which is a very good mechanism to start, not measuring the success of a student after the classes were done, but have a track of students' progress during learning. A very helpful tool, especially if you want to optimize the learning process. Okay. Now, because of that, you can really automate large student groups educational process, because you don't need people to monitor them all the time, what their progress is, but you can have basically prediction of their development during the time, which can affect syllabus design and provide adjustment process, adjustments to the development of the students. So you don't need to, it cannot happen that you are really pushing things too fast or putting things which are not comprehended by the students, but adapt to the development of the students through time. The trade-off for this part is that you need to constantly monitor the student learning perception. So you need to intrude their personal environment and get the necessary data for that. And as you can see, this is pushed in red, because that's here we have, in the very moment, a very heavy ethical problem. Can we intrude the personal space of students? Can we look at what they are doing? Are they studying or not? What are they studying? Do they understand what they're reading or exercising or whatever? Is this something we can do? And I'm seriously in doubt that this is the case. So in the phase one, we have large optimization options to invoke artificial intelligence, but at the same time, we have large ethical problems of getting into the personal space of the student, which is, I will not say maybe, but which is problematic. And if we go to China, hey guys, they're doing that. They're constantly monitoring the students in their classrooms, at their homes. Do you have cameras on your computers? Obviously you do, because I can see you. Those cameras can be very easily used to recognize facial expressions, to recognize where you're looking at, what are you doing on your screen, on your computer. So technically, this can be measured, and this can be used to monitor the progress of the level of the effort student puts in the studying. But again, from my point of view, extremely problematic. Okay, as you can see, most of the narrow AI effects are focused in the optimization process. I have a problem with automated large student groups educational programs process. So I can do Harvard style online learning for large groups, which is fabulous. That's I don't feel that. I don't know. Let's see if how the general AI might imply. So basically, additionally to the narrow AI, we can dynamically put state-of-the-art learning content to increase student capacity. So this one is related to the knowledge sharing, not within an educational organization, but really getting the state-of-the-art learning content from the environment and delivering it to the student. This part can be done. So basically identify the student needs, identify the state-of-the-art learning content, and deliver that. So here you go, you are not really limited with the syllabus anymore. It goes beyond, you can go beyond that. And you can develop something that is called ubiquitous state-of-the-art knowledge, which basically body of the knowledge can be really developed, not separate, but combined and provide a really state-of-the-art knowledge base which is out there by sharing the knowledge of the educational institutions, of the teachers, and also of the students. And here you go. Then the teacher can become the student's learning agent, because it's supported on one side with the state-of-the-art knowledge which is accessible, with the learning process of the student, and on the third side with the demands of the environment, which really needs some knowledge within the students. So those three separated points can be delivered to the teacher and can be delivered to the student, and thereby you do not teach the student anymore, but you are an agent for a student trying to identify the knowledge which is out there available and deliver it to him. Not teach him, but help him learn. And I think this is the major breakthrough. And here you see you can eliminate the stress in getting the demands from the environment, because you get tailored proposals on what should be delivered to the student at certain stage. You get access to the knowledge which is there, and not the whole knowledge, but proposals. Okay, let's try to put those contents to the student, and thereby you don't teach anymore. You actually supervise and support students to learn. You are the one who knows how to deal the system. Okay. Now, especially in COVID, we had horrible issues with vocational learning. I don't know if theoretical knowledge, gaining theoretical knowledge over remote learning systems is relatively okay. Vocational learning, where you really need to put your hands on something, is a problem. Okay, now I have put this one in, even though it may not be really related to that, but virtual reality can support vocational learning to basically simulate interactive environments. The issue there is it's really hard to develop virtual reality contents. So we need to see if those things can be shared, and then proposed, okay, I have this kind of situation for this kind of student, I would propose this kind of vocational learning in virtual reality. Frankly, and I'm going there to an example. Did any of you got some issues with home appliances breaking down? Right? What do? Do you ask for an expert? Do you send it for repair? Or do you just go to YouTube and try to find a video which shows you how to repair the bloody thing? Well, I do the latter. I go to YouTube and see if this can be repaired, and then, oh, it's easy. I can do that, right? So I'm talking of this kind of virtual environment in the vocational learning issues. The fifth one is lifelong learning, which is not really something educational organizations do these days, right? After you produce your student, you send him to the world, and that's it. The relationship within the educational institution and the students break apart, and it's a time-limited service. I don't know if learning is something that can be offered as a service, then it shouldn't be limited to the time when the students is part of the educational process. So yeah, lifelong learning, and can be used, because if you know the student, if you know the contents he would need, you can deliver it to them. And the sixth one is really problematic, because educational establishments level courses planning and design process, which are part of the organization for education, are not really required. You don't really have to have detailed planning. Why? Because if you have a flexibility during the execution part, the detailed planning of the curriculum and everything is not really needed anymore, because you are supporting learning of each individual student. Why do you need mass preparation for courses? I don't get it. You don't need that. And this is quite problematic to understand. Information design demands here are not only observing the student, which was partly narrow, but also standardized access to the state-of-the-art knowledge. And the next one, which I didn't write but should be stated there, is access to the instant demands of the knowledge of the environment. So basically, you do support environment by providing knowledge to singular students. You can see that in many places are there. And Raul, I know I did not properly answer your questions. And the question, because the question was, how does that affect the organization, right?
Yes, I think, let me just make the comment. Everything that you are saying makes sense to me. The only thing that I am concerned is that I would like to focus on particular issues of learning and see how is it that artificial intelligence, through some kind of approach, methodological approach, can help to handle those situations in a better way than they can be handled in the usual traditional way. So that's where I'm trying to get something from your discussion.
Yeah, well, frankly, what I would like to do, and this is, I'm sorry, but to properly answer that, we would need to conduct a kind of an experiment, right? Because all of these now are more or less presumptions. Yeah, I think we would need to conduct an experiment to see. Okay, let's try to conduct some kind of a learning experiment for the students, and see if we can do the three things I have mentioned: observe their progress in real time, identify in real time the changes in the demands of what they would need to learn, and at the same time be very dynamic in accessing the knowledge and basically provide them and support their self-learning. And I think we do need to test that in an experiment with some real students to see if and how from the data point, from the algorithm points, artificial intelligence can be employed.
And presumably you are thinking in the ethical aspects that you were referring to earlier.
Well,
certain responses may have difficulties in the ethical domain.
Especially the one where you assess the students' preferences, the students when you observe the student. In this part particularly, and the real question here is how to make students open up and say, okay, well, I'm fine with that. I know that you will not misuse my trust. I can share some of the information and expect not to be shared the whole information, because obviously people have the right for the privacy, right? You cannot intrude somebody's personal space. Let us understand that. So the effects might not be optimal in the sense of controlling the student, but the idea is not to control the student. The idea is to guide him when in need. And yeah, it's we're trying to address multiple problems at the same time. That is why I'm really hoping for the general AI to be of help, because you do not resolve only one problem, you have multiple ones.
Igor,
Yes.
I think that there is another issue that I find concerning when you talk about standardized access to the state-of-the-art knowledge. If you have a machine that is making this judgment, what is the state-of-the-art knowledge? What is good or bad knowledge? What is a good source? What is qualitative knowledge in a particular domain? Then, this judgment is not that easy to be automatized. Yeah. So how do you come up with a criteria of what is good or bad knowledge that is not gonna be creating discriminating against a particular source of knowledge? Yeah.
A very good question. Well, frankly, and in this aspect, we are facing one of the teacher's limitations, because frankly, what we do, and I do it, I must admit that I support the knowledge I know. So frankly, I'm not objective when it comes to assessing which knowledge is basically the one that should be delivered. And that's problematic from my perspective. And I'm really hoping for the artificial intelligence to be capable to assess this really vast place of knowledge and discover the parts which are in line with the students' goals and with the environment's desires related to this particular student. So again, I can see there, especially there, the artificial intelligence to help out to resolve this triangle of the student's performance, of environment, requests for the student knowledge, and the availability of the body of knowledge. That this currently goes beyond the capacity of a teacher and also of an organization. And frankly, I would like to keep it there, because if we go to the super artificial intelligence implication, currently it looks like it's that radical that it will abolish the need for educational institutions. And I would not like to go into that discussion, if you agree. So I would not like to comment the last slide. Please, if you want, you can try to read it, but I don't feel comfortable reading it because it's too devastating. And yeah, so really thank you for listening and for some comments. But if you have comments, suggestions, if you feel like let's destroy the guy, yeah, now I'm here for you.
John has a question.
Okay, Igor, thank you very much. That was really stimulating. The question I got is this thing about continuous assessment of the student. And when you were talking about that, I was reminded of a little newspaper article I read about a very senior American educator who'd gone to Finland. And he came back and he was being interviewed and he said, I think we've got it completely wrong in America. We've got everything absolutely wrong. When standards start to fall, we put more exams, more interrogation. We assess them continuously. We break down the time. So there's more and more and more assessment. The Finns do exactly the opposite. They just leave these kids alone. And they do exactly what you were talking about. The teacher becomes a resource for the student. And they don't need to ask the student or find out what the student needs because the student's running it. So the student knows what the student needs. And they run these projects. And they don't assess them. They have exams every couple of years, from what I understand. And they're producing some of the best educated kids in the world. And I wondered how that sort of, that fits in with your thinking about, how you use AI, because clearly how we're going to use it fits in with a basic pedagogical philosophy about how you teach kids and the best way to run education.
You know, I think we have multiple options. Let's go to the worst and to the best, right? And probably the truth will be somewhere in the middle. What we can do, we can create a perfectly perfect little cubes which fit into the system and run perfectly what they've been told. And you can get that by using the method of constantly correcting them. Do not leave them think about for themselves, and train them to obey and to comply to the system. Okay, that's one variant which can be done. Training. The other one is basically let them discover things, let them try to figure it out for themselves, let them guide them to the next issue they need to be confronted with, and basically try to create problem solvers. Try to show them the problem, try to assist them in how maybe he can deal with the problem, the issue, and then let them do it. And so in this way, you're an assistant. So I think those are the two options, and probably the proper way is something in the middle, because frankly, they need to be compliant to the system. They need to fit in. But on the other hand, they need to work and think for themselves. And frankly, I do think that the personality is really important there, and you need to fit to the personality. You cannot change a person who is compliant to a person who is total independent thinker, because he will feel miserable in his life, and vice versa. So yeah, but just if you really follow up to the development, you can see, you can test the next steps. Should you go to the left? Should you go to the right? And what to do, but not clearly make up your mind in the age of 6 to see how a person should be developed or where it should go. So in this sense.
Okay, thank you, Igor. Javier Livas had a comment.
Yes, thank you, Angela. I've been watching videos by Stuart Kaufman the last 2 or 3 days, and he's up with ideas that we have to look at, because he's saying that complexity has now, in the biological life and in the technological life, gone to such an extreme that we're totally incapable of predicting any type of future. I think we should all take a look at that. As you know, we were not very fond of the Santa Fe Institute because they had their own definition of variety and all of that, and they study complex adaptive systems. But I think that Stuart Kaufman's lectures in the past years, where they talk about the unpredictability and how reason is really not going to play a role. We sort of are going to have to feel our way through the new adaptations that are in the new, what he calls new adjacent possible niches. And so what it means is that there's no computer program ever going to be able to predict what's going to happen in a year. Okay, maybe small gaps or fill in little gaps, yes, but I think this is very important what he's been saying. Okay.
Thank you, Javier. I'm so happy that, and I'm really hoping that this will be the case. That we will not be able to totally predict what is going to happen. Why? Because in this case, the super AI is just wishful thinking, and hopefully it will never occur.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
and I'm really happy about that. Frankly, if you're talking about
If you want me, I can put the link in the comments. Let me try to do that. Okay.
yes, please.
Igor, we have also John Lee wants to comment.
Yes, John Lee, you're muted. Yes.
In 1970, I was working for the State Department of Mental Health in California, and we were closing the state hospitals. I wrote a paper on computers taking over what is now called singularity. We are now at the point, you didn't go into super AI because it is so scary. The good news is nature bats last. Nature is so much more complicated than we are. We don't understand most of nature. The computer program is such a minor reflection of reality as we know it, that the AI things that we're doing, here's my real answer. AI with big numbers come up with conclusions that are remarkably true. They are based on large numbers. They are not based on reality. They are based on flows. They are based on patterns, but they're not based on reality. The whole point of the viable system model is let's go back to what's real. Let's not look at 500 numbers. Let's look at the 10 numbers that matter the most. Let's keep our eye on the ball. Let's keep our eye on what should be important and not get caught up in the details. The problem with AI is it looks at all the details and it defines it based on past behavior. The whole point of nature is now is different than every other reality we've ever had. Stafford's whole point is look at it now and see how it is real. Don't think that it's the same as it was in the past. We need to look at the world as a new world. I think that we're in a battle with AI, but I think human nature is going to win and the Chinese are going to prove us right. The Chinese have no control over their society and they're trying to have more and more control. I think it's absurd what they're doing in China. I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, it's relatively easy to predict something if you have a stable environment and make short-time predictions. As soon as the environment becomes dynamic, as soon as you try to predict something on long term, the probability of or the accuracy of your predictions just plummets. And you can see the how they're trying to predict what is going to happen in COVID, and they can't predict it for a week. It's just out of control. So I must agree with you, and there's the point. There is still real need for a teacher there who can go and who can see the proposals which the system does, and then decides what to do and maybe discusses it with the student. But it's something that is supportive and which does eliminates some of the tasks he would otherwise have to do. Check the requirements from the environments, check the body of knowledge. He can have suggestions. And that's basically the idea, to have proposals for really developing the student-teacher relationship to go on. But it's in general AI, I'm happy that this relationship is there, and it is only supported by artificial intelligence. And maybe avoiding some of the bottlenecks in which otherwise the teacher would struggle. Yeah, you cannot constantly monitor the students, especially if you have many. You cannot constantly monitor the demands or the body of knowledge. But it would be great for me to have some proposal. Hey guys, this is what might be interesting for this student. Let's try to do that. Okay, so it's not about letting AI run the show, but it's about creating proposals to deal with.
Thank you, Igor. Alena, you have a comment, and I think that it will be the last one because we are already a little bit late to
Oh gosh, yeah, sorry, I talked too much.
No.
Always.
You've done great.
I wanted I wanted to ask about error. I've read about applications where they tracked student locations about whether they were in class, when they went to their residence, when they used the dining hall, etc. And sometimes student scholarships are dependent on their maintaining class attendance and that sort of thing. But the students themselves have found that if their technology goes haywire, or they have a program that didn't quite load right, that there is no appeal when AI says they weren't there and they say, yeah, they were. And they can even get other students to verify that they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if the class is small enough, the instructor. But I think one of the biggest problems with AI is that there's no human appeal process in many of these applications.
Yeah, and we're clearly talking about misusing the data sharing. Frankly, if students do not feel like being observed, whether they are in the classroom or not, and basically have a problem with the teacher observing them through the means of smart devices, then we have a clear ethical problem of, can teacher actually go into the private space and try to reason with students? Where have you been? What have you been doing? Is this? I mean, really, in this case, we have this classical relationship of a observing system and an individual with limited rights.
Hmm.
And I really expressed the ethical issue of that. And frankly, if there is a consent of students, okay, well, I understand that you need to do that in order for me to help me out. It's not to monitor me and to put pressure on me, even without me wanting to do that. It makes no sense. And this is a clear example of confrontation. We should find a different way to do it. We should try to avoid this kind of situations because they're not productive, not for the students, not for the teacher, well, basically for anybody.
Yeah. Back in earlier times, we occasionally had to sign into lectures, which was not that much of a problem and which was not prone to error.
Yeah, but the question is, frankly, I do my lectures without checking if somebody's there, and I know that occasionally when we are working remote, I try to ask a student and there is no reply. So basically, he's there but not really there. But that's okay. That's his decision. If he finds the lectures not providing any value added for him or her, then that's fine. That's okay, because who am I to press him to listen to the stuff that he's not interested in?
Mm-hmm.
So it should be a combined effort and agreed desires for achieving the goal. And that's maybe I like working with students. Why? Because they're adult. They're over 18 and they can decide.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to enforce them anyhow. If you prefer studying at home, yes, do it. It's okay. But if you feel like discussing and working in groups at the same time at which other students are, then there's an option. Let's do it like that. So yeah.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Lena and Igor. I don't know, Jose, you made a comment. Do you want to do your comment, or shall we?
Well, no, my only comment is in relation to the first to the prediction that you are discussing. We try not to use that verb because we think that this is it's impossible to predict anything if we go to complex social systems. We can explore probable scenarios and try to explore some actions with a certain probability that they may or may not take us to a desired future state, but not predicting. So predicting is eradicated because take us to a quite different way of facing the world. Mm-hmm. The other observation is in relation to your general expansion, goals expansion. You ended up telling that it's just to agree with you, that exists the current organizational capability. Absolutely. So this observation that you made, it takes me to a reflection, is that before you get immersed in all these AI developments, that you have been describing a fragmentation of different versions of that, narrow, general, etc. I think that previous to all that is the redesign of the whole education system, not physically, but mentally. The decision takers in the institutions, the society in general, etc., should be a demand for a new way of approaching the reality. And this is previous to all the development of these technical aspects that are necessary. Of course, they will come after. But before we get swamped in all these developments, we need to set us back to reflect to what is necessary. Once that this is debated and reflected upon, and this involves all stakeholders, not only the universities, not only the schools, not only the politicians, involves many actors. And this is previous to all that. So my concern about all this AI is that the problem is not so much now to get into all this development that, as it is to reflect about what is necessary, what the world needs at this point in time, which is previous to that. So this expanded goal is even more expanded because we need to think before that, no? Before we start to make all the. It was only a comment. To agree with you, Igor, is a little depressing, the reflection, but this is how we.
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, frankly, this is let's say a look somewhere in the future. The reality is it's much harder. Frankly, you need to go step by step, maybe envisioning the goals that are far ahead. But the issue is you cannot just pour this in the organization and redesign it. It cannot be done. What you can do, you can put in tools, check if they work, see why they are not working, how they are not working, and do it again, and have a gradual development of this. It's absolutely optimistic to say, well, next year we will not plan for the curriculum. We will just improvise, because frankly, that would mean total collapse of the system. We need to think about the stability of the system, and we need to think about, how many changes can an organization absorb. We can't just redefine the organization and think we will not have any organizational resistance, we will modify everything and everybody will be happy and everything will work. But it's a wishful thinking. So it should be done incrementally to test the basically artificial intelligence systems, to see where the organizational resistance is, how to deal with that, and you know, in narrow AI effects, I expressed that, you know, we would, to do narrow AI, which is the first one, we would need to constantly monitor student learning. Come on, you can't do that. Not the easy way. So the you know, we break our legs on the step one if we're not doing it correctly and slowly, and put the students in to be basically to be on the same side, not to be on the other side of the students. Right now we are on the other side. So and for this we need to you know, trial and error process to be done properly, and invoke, as you said, all of the stakeholders there. It's not about pushing something into that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Igor. This has been a really fascinating webinar, and I think that leaves us with all sorts of questions. Really, really a very exciting field to continue developing. So I think that we're gonna finish now, and as usual, we will update the recording in the Metaphorum website, and looking forward to have you again in 2 weeks in the next webinar that we will remind you about it in advance. Okay. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thanks everybody for the comments.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank
Lena,
you.
you stay here for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.